Diane, thank you so much for being here with me. I am so excited because your story is very unique. And I think that the uniqueness of your story is really going to help people to understand that, like, it doesn't matter where you're at, it doesn't matter what your story looks like, that we can help with that and we can make it so that things work out the way that they need to work out. It all comes down to you. Okay. And so I'm going to have you give me a little bit of a backstory first of like what was going on when you came to me. Okay. What was going on in your relationship? What was going on in your heart? Give me a little bit of backstory because like I said, this is a unique case.
Yeah, well, I had been in a long distance relationship for 6 to 8 months, and I had a breakup around December, or what I twisted into a breakup. So I had kind of, been looking at stuff on Instagram and any kind of relationship advice. I would just go and kind of like, whatever. That's how I found you. So. And he lives in a different country, so that's very unique, very unique.
Yeah, definitely. And so like what was going on between you guys? Because the fact that it's long distance is huge and he lives in a different country, also huge. But like what was going on between you guys that was kind of causing issues?
Well, we had met each other in person over those few months. It was fine, going great, get along good. And in December, I was scheduled to fly out to see him. And of course, you have to, it being long distance, most of our stuff is by text messages, especially with the time difference and being at work, yada, yada. So, he was just kind of having a tough time. He was working a ton of hours, like 80 hours a week. So he was exhausted. And, like I said, most of our correspondence was through text. And I was set to fly out to him in December. But he was just having a tough time. And so I asked him, I was like, well, would you rather I not come since you're having such a tough time? And to my surprise, he said, yeah. So I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that answer because I already had my flight booked. And so, it spiraled from there. I just like I said, completely took what he said, twisted it into a breakup, and just kind of abandoned the relationship there for about a month till I found you. So, yeah, that's just kind of what was going on. I just let my feelings get the better of me, and just completely overreacted in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. You guys, and I was just when I heard that, I was like, it broke my heart, babe.
Yeah.
Broke my heart to hear you say that. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. And so before this relationship, can you give me a little bit of background into like what your relationship background was? Because this was obviously a new relationship for you, but you were struggling to navigate it, not just because of the distance, literally, but because of your past and what was missing. So can you give us a little bit of background about that too?
Yes, I was married for a very long time, for many years. So I don't, and only dated one or two others, so I don't have a lot of relationship experience. Especially not long distance. This is the first long distance relationship I ever have. Also add that he's from another country, cultural things can, kind of play a different part in all of that. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of relationship experience. My mother and father's marriage, they did stay married, throughout their lifetime. I wasn't a child of divorce, but it was not a good example for a child to grow up in. I wouldn't want my daughter to look at that and say, hey, you need to model after the relationship. So I had no idea. I was just over here winging it, trying to figure everything out on my own. I didn't have a close relationship with my parents. So it's not like me and my mom ever talked about this kind of thing. My sister was a lot older than me, so she was out of the house by the time, I had grown up. So it was just kind of me by myself trying to figure stuff out. And like I said, I hadn't had a lot of interaction, especially with men, because my father worked nights. And so I didn't see him much. So I just not knowing how to behave around the opposite sex, it just made me awkward around men. Um, just awkward and just not really knowing what to say, what to do. And like I said, my mom, she was just, she wasn't the most warm person. Let's put it that way. So watching how she interacted with him was not a very good example.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you telling me that, and it's a really common story too, not having a good example of a healthy relationship growing up. And so like that leads me into my next question is what was it like knowing you have this background, knowing that you're struggling here and that you're a little bit awkward? What was it like entering into this container with me? What was the support like having that type of background, having the struggles that you're having? What was it like being here?
It was great. You were really supportive. You understood. You're very comforting. Yeah, I mean, being, I'm just glad I found you. Let's just put it that way. It really, it turned everything around a total 180. So, yeah, I'm very glad for that.
Awesome. So like for you in particular here, what do you feel like has shifted for you? Because I've noticed a ton of shifts, especially in these last few weeks, specifically for you. And I want to know if what you see within yourself, like what has shifted? What are you noticing that's different now?
Well, definitely getting a better hold of my emotions, being able to control my emotions, instead of just spiraling. I remember even telling you that in one of our exchanges. I was like, I'm just spiraling, Daniel. I'm just spiraling. I don't know what to do. And so now I have better control. Um, it's helped me be more vulnerable, to express my feelings, but express them in a way that he can hear instead of I was pretty defensive in my messages, defensive and cold. So like I said, I told you that the warmth was a big thing I needed to work on because I didn't witness that. So I just needed to know how to be warm. And, I remember when on Instagram when you had messaged me and I said, if I change how I show up, it'll change how he shows up too. So, and
And did
that's,
that work out for you?
oh yeah, it's definitely worked out for sure.
Yeah, I'll say. I will say. Okay, so the next thing I want to ask you is I remember our very first call before you even decided. Okay, before you even decided you wanted to jump into the container, I remember what our conversation was like. And I want you to give us a little bit of detail as to what was it like trying to make that decision? Was there anything that almost stopped you from jumping in?
Well, I'm a worrier, and an overthinker, and I had never, done anything like this. I was like, oh my God, is this a scam? I was like, I don't have the money for this. I was just super, super paranoid. Yeah, I was freaking out pretty bad. It used to not take a lot to freak me out. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I almost didn't do it. I was real close to just being like, I can't do this. So I'm glad I took that chance though.
Yeah, babe. What pushed you over the edge? What was that little nudge that said, "All right, let's go"?
I was like, I just had to sit down and think about it. I was like, okay, her reaching out to me has to be a sign. It's got to be some kind of sign. I'd never had that happen before. It scared me, but also I was like, it's got to be some kind of sign. I have, you know, I've got to do something. I've got to figure this out. I can't figure it out on my own. Because I had, he had reached back out to me, but our conversations, they weren't going anywhere. Because, I wasn't being warm. I was kind of being standoffish. And so I was like, I knew I had to have some help from somewhere. And, and like I said, even though I was paranoid and scared, you did give off a very good vibe. And you seemed like you could help me. So I took that chance.
I'm so glad you did.
Me
I'm
too.
so glad you've done so well. I love it. It's just been such a blessing to watch you grow here and to hear all of the amazing things that are happening between you because you know I kind of want to hear it from you because I can see these things, okay? But I want to make sure that you also see these things. So from what I'm seeing, I'm not only seeing you grow, but because of what you're sharing with me, I'm also I also get to witness, secondhand the growth that's happening with your partner. And so I kind of can you speak to that? Can you speak to that transition, that transformation that he is also experiencing because of the work you've done here?
Yeah, he is definitely, like I said, when that happened in December and then he reached back out to me, it was kind of, there for a while, it was just kind of very cold, just kind of skating around the edges. We never got in a very deep conversation like me and you had talked about, just kept it kind of topical. Um, but now lots of vulnerability there. He's told me, we both told each other so much, opened our hearts, poured our hearts out. Um, he has started to come back towards me, being warm, like commenting on my pictures and things like that. And so it, I told you, I think the other day, it felt like it did before all of that had happened in December. So yeah, I definitely feel the shift in him, not just me. So
I love that. And just for the record, just for everybody who watches this, because you and I, we talk, but people aren't privy to our private conversations. But just for the record, you haven't like asked him to pour his heart out. You haven't asked him to change. You haven't asked anything of him, have you?
no, not at all. None
No.
of that.
He's just volunteering all of these things.
Yes, as I have started opening up, that led him to open up. It really actually surprised me when it happened. I was not prepared for it. I just told him what I felt, and he just let the floodgates go on his feelings as well. So yeah, absolutely. I never asked him to change or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's
Love it.
all for me changing.
That's right. That's where it starts. Starts right
Yeah,
here. Oh my
yeah.
God, I love it. Yes. Okay, so for you, what do you think has been the most profound shift? Based on everything that's in your past, based on your whole entire relationship here, like what did you notice changed the most for you?
Probably just the biggest thing is showing my emotions. That was something I did not do. I would try to keep that hidden as much as I could. I wasn't going to let it out, not let anybody see. On one of the calls, remember, I started crying on one of the calls with you. You just brought it out, brought it out of me, and there it was. But yeah, that's something I would never let anybody see. So it's just letting those emotions out and being able to be open and vulnerable is probably the biggest thing that has helped me.
And how has that been in your relationship? Like what has that done for your relationship now that you have been able to like let down that guard and access that vulnerability?
It's helped. Like I said, he's opened up. He's been vulnerable. Like I said, he's constantly coming towards me. I don't have that anxiety there anymore, not really knowing what's happening, what's going on. It's dramatically improved our relationship. Like I said, it's feeling just like before December when all of it just kind of unraveled. So, and it's long overdue because it hadn't been this way in a long time.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that, and it really, you were so concerned. You were extremely concerned. I do remember that because you're like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what's happening right now. Everything seems really like flat almost. And I know you were getting really tired and anxious because things just kind of seemed like they had stalled.
Yes.
And then once you started to open up a little bit more and also not just open up a little bit more, can you speak to the communication shifts that we've talked about? Because there have been a couple very key changes that we've made that I think have also contributed to him being more comfortable opening up.
Well, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, just communicating in more of a feminine way and not being so, what's the word I'm looking for? Abrasive. Because that's kind of how I would come off before. You know, you had to correct me on a couple of things. You're like, oh, that sounds kind of, and I was like, I didn't mean for it to sound like that. So definitely with that, communicating, what I need and, how I do it has just really led him to step up
Yeah,
in ways that I didn't think he would step up.
and that's fantastic right there in ways that you didn't think he would step up just because of the way that you're talking, just because you're approaching these conversations differently. So I remember in the past, we talked a little bit about the mothering aspect of some of the language that you were using, or the fact that like it feels like you're helping during certain situations. It feels like this is what you're supposed to do, but in actuality, what you're doing is not helping. So can you speak to how you have like released that and what's happened?
Yeah, well, I am a mother and then also I work in healthcare, so that's double dose of the mothering kind of instinct in me. Um, and then also that's just my personality to just swoop in and help and offer suggestions and, things that you shouldn't do with a man. So I was doing a lot of that and not realizing that I was doing it. So now I always catch myself, but if I start to go down that route and pull it back, reel it back in. So yeah, that's been a big change as well.
Yeah, I noticed that myself when you have told me about your conversations with him, and you've shown me the shift that's happened as you've pulled back and basically offered him trust in his own like decisions, trust in his own ability to handle whatever it is that he has opened up to you about. And it really has helped him to open up more to you because instead of you trying to fix it, you're sitting here validating him and telling him that he can manage whatever it is that's coming his way. Do you feel as if, because we both know that he is quite a worrywart himself, do you feel as if your shift in this area has given him confidence?
Oh yeah, definitely. I could just tell by some of the things he said, he was a lot more confident and especially like decisions and things like that. Just by me changing that, I could notice the shift in the language that he uses and being able to figure it out and, just do what it is that he needs to do. Definitely that he feels a lot better.
Love it. I love it. Okay, so let's do like a major highlight now. Okay, we're gonna major highlight from beginning to now because I know you're here for round two because we want to keep this train going. Okay,
Yes.
because things are ramping up and it's like we gotta keep it moving.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of at your halfway point. So we're gonna highlight from beginning to your halfway point here for round two. What's different? What's different in your relationship? What's different in you that you would like to highlight?
Which I kind of touched on. I've stepped back, not swooping in to try to fix problems. My anxiety has calmed way down. I started doing the meditation and things like that. That's brought my anxiety and worrying down. So it's helped me just in overall life, not just my relationship. This has really helped, I mean, across the board, with being more calm and, stuff like that, even my relationship with my daughter. Um, so that for sure. And then, of course, the relationship, it's helped tremendously, because now we're back to where we were, beforehand, before it all just fell apart in December. And I feel positive about our future now. Whereas there for a while, I didn't know where it was going, or, I wasn't sure it was going to continue, but I feel very positive about our future.
I love that. I love that. So, my last question for you as we wrap up here is, if somebody was on the fence, if they wanted to work with me, but they weren't sure, they didn't know whether they could do it, they didn't know, which way to go. If somebody was thinking about working with me, but they weren't sure, what would you tell them?
Oh, 100% jump in. 100%. Your life will just, like I said, it's done a complete 180. Like you said, it's just hard, a lot of us we didn't grow up with the best backgrounds, didn't have good examples to look at. So to try to figure it out on your own, because I had kind of tried to figure it out on my own. That's why I was on Instagram looking up stuff, and it just makes a huge difference having a coach. I had heard people having coaches. I was like, does it make that big of a difference? Like I said, I'm a single mom, so the money thing was that was a big thing in my mind. Is this going to be worth it? Because I can't just, I don't have free money to throw away or a lot of disposable income. It's got to be worth it. So it was 100% worth it, especially, if I'm doing round two. But yeah, to just definitely, get some help. If you need some help, definitely just go ahead and do it. It was honestly the best thing I had done.
Well, dang, thanks. I'm really glad it was worth it for you, because I think you're right. I think that also is what it comes down to, whether it was worth it for you or not. And I'm so glad it was worth it for you to be in this container, to do this for yourself, which then impacted the relationship, and not just with your partner, but in life. You talked about your daughter, and you went for a new job that pays you more money with less, responsibility in the process. And your whole life has started to change because of this. And it's all because of the decision that you made, the action that you took. And I'm so happy for you, babe.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about the new job, that too, because honestly, I probably would have just stayed stuck where I was at if I had not changed some of this. And, I'm still new in the job, but I feel confident it was the best move. So yeah, my life's just going up, going up. We're just going to keep it going up.
Yes, ma'am. Of course. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Diane. I am so happy with your progress, and I know we are heading into round two, and we'll probably have another one of these in another 3 months. So let's see how far we can take it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.